time for this week's Difficult Conversation, and we've got in the studio here with me now disability campaigner George Fielding. Now, this comes as MPs have voted to approve the Assisted Dying Bill, which means that terminally ill adults who are expected to die within 6 months could seek medical assistance to end their lives. Now, George, who's with me here now, says that it should be called state-sponsored suicide.
Indeed.
George, tell me what you think about this bill.
It's the worst bill to have been passed through Parliament in a generation. It changes our very relationship with the state, between doctors and patients, and what it doesn't account for is the fact that hundreds of thousands of people feel like a burden every day because they do not get the support that they require through social care, palliative care, the welfare benefit system. And what you are going to, and there is no way that doctors can actually object to doing this. So you're just going to pass on people's requests. All you're going to do is create a two-tier system between doctors that don't want to perform it and doctors that will, but everybody who says that they wish to die will find a way to die on the NHS, which is not the cradle-to-grave service that Nye Bevan worked so hard to found all of those years ago.
Now, during the passage of the bill and the scrutiny, some MPs did try and bring amendments to the bill that would protect disabled people. They were rejected by the bill's proponents.
All of them were voted down. So they voted down an amendment to say that you couldn't use feeling like a burden as a reason. Voluntary eating and drinking is a legitimate way to qualify now, which means that people with anorexia, which is a mental illness, can qualify. It means that anybody managing with a lifelong condition like mine, who acquires something like diabetes, diabetes patients that go without insulin would qualify, and anybody with a lifelong condition that goes unmanaged and therefore have 6 months to live will qualify. What we are not doing here is standing up for the voiceless and those that do not have the resource. In every other... assisted suicide is actually a westernised, rich phenomenon. And that's because everybody is scared of death. But it's not. It's something that none of us can avoid. None of us can avoid death. And what that means... We need to build services and structures around that. Palliative care, only a third of hospices are state-funded, criminally hard to access. No therapies, no support for people who are going through the worst moment of their lives, but it's not something we can avoid, and we can't legislate because of unprocessed pain.
Do you want to save a boatload of cash this summer, wherever you have a trip planned? The one thing you're going to need is access to the internet and on the go. And you can do that easily with Saily. Hit the link in the description to get 15% of your first eSIM plan ready for your trip so you can browse to your heart's content. Saily gets you a local SIM card you can use when traveling so you don't have to pay those crazy roaming fees just to send a message or check the latest news. Now, they've got plans in over 160 countries, 8 regions, so pretty much everywhere, wherever you're going, they'll be able to make sure you're connected. So how does it work? All you've got to do is this. Hit the link in the description to download the app. It will work on iOS or Android. Buy a plan, you can choose an amount of data and time frame that suits you best, and then just install the eSIM on your phone. When you land at your holiday destination, you can activate your plan instantly. And if that wasn't enough, Saily eSIMs only ever have to be installed once. So when you go on your next trip, you just buy a plan for a new country, turn that eSIM back on, and boom, you're back watching me on GB News. I'll be using a Saily SIM on my next holiday because it's actually faster than some of the hotel Wi-Fis. You can get unlimited data if you want, so you can scroll away to your heart's content. And when you leave the hotel, you don't have to do that annoying thing of Wi-Fi hopping because you've got constant connectivity wherever you go. And they've got 24/7 support as well and a full refund policy if your eSIM isn't compatible. So get sorted for your next trip. Download Saily using the link in the description below. And if you use the code NEWS at checkout, you'll get an exclusive 15% discount on us. So click the link, download Saily, and use the code NEWS at checkout.
Now, and indeed, pain is not actually even a requirement under this bill. You don't have to be in pain. It's just that diagnosis, which may or may not be accurate. But somebody like Dame Esther Rantzen, who's been campaigning for assisted suicide for a long time, would say that individual human beings should have full autonomy. They should have the right to choose the moment of their own death. But do you think this idea of having full autonomy is something that perhaps only wealthy people have? Do people who are disabled, do people who are vulnerable feel that sense of autonomy?
Well, I have actually never disagreed with Dame Esther Rantzen on anything but this issue. And I actually thank her now and Rebecca, her daughter, because every time they intervene, they make our argument stronger, because she should have died 18 months ago.
That was her prognosis.
And that was her prognosis, and she's still here through actually miracle medication, which I'm really quite glad that she's been able to access. But she's had 2 birthdays and 2 Christmases that she shouldn't have had otherwise, and many conversations with her loved ones that somebody in pain, somebody with no choice may wish to have. Suicide is not a choice, and living without support as a disabled person is not a choice, but it is a lived reality. 1 in 4 people living in poverty have a disability, and we have no support either for carers in the most struggling homes across this country. They're like tinder boxes of domestic violence, coercive relationships, because people are struggling, and burden and coercion are incredibly hard to spot and train on. Now, under the provisions of this bill, I think they say that every doctor who is trained for this will only receive an online course on coercion. So it's not. This has been rushed through, and only this week, 80 MPs, no, more than 50 Labour MPs said they wanted more time. They've made a black and white decision, a life and death decision, which they were not ready or qualified to make. And this is the first private members' bill that the new intake of MPs have ever voted on. Why now? Why this? What? Because sadly, it's convenient and cost-effective to get rid of people, to kill people whom we do not know how to support. But that is not the right answer.
Very briefly, George, what is your message to the House of Lords, who now have an opportunity to scrutinise this, to amend this, perhaps even kill the bill?
I hope they do kill the bill, but I don't actually think that's possible. What they need to do is scrutinise this line by line. What they need to do is scrutinise this line by line, promote alternatives at every stage. They need to realise that this bill is not ready to be unleashed on the public, and if it be unleashed on the public, harm is going to be caused to our most vulnerable communities. That is no epitaph for a public servant.
George, thank you so much for joining me on this very, very difficult issue, but a very passionate and articulate campaign there. Thank you so much.